All right, moving on to our next discussion now. In Abakaliki, Ebonyi State, capital rice production is still a thriving business, but this is yet to translate to huge economic gains for the state or even the country at large.
Well, still, Nigeria still imports rice. Carl Ofonia tells us more about it.
Rice production in Ebonyi State is as old as the Nigerian nation. This is why the locally produced rice is branded Abakaliki rice by most Nigerians, apparently to associate the product with Ebonyi State, whose capital is Abakaliki. The innovation for now is the revolution taking place in the Ebonyi rice industry. This has led to increased production to unprecedented level.
What business has Nigeria to be importing $635 billion worth of rice? What business? What are we doing? How much? What are we producing in Nigeria, for example?
Because of this new dawn, rice fields can be seen in every nook and cranny of the state, including Abakaliki, the Ebonyi State capital. Some of the farmers we met in one of the fields say they are even ready to cultivate more if government supports them with the necessary inputs. He revealed that as part of efforts, the state government has given out improved yields to local farmers, sent some youths abroad for training, and procured tractors for the farmers. Mills of equal capacities as this one in Iboko established by the Ebonyi State government elsewhere in the state. And this, he explained, is aside the over 500 other local rice mills owned by individuals in the popular Abakaliki rice mill market.
All those people that were eating their rice over there for $635 billion, there is no reason why we are going to be frivolously spending our money importing rice.
In 1962, by the defunct Eastern States, rice milling operations were at their peaks in different plants as at 10 a.m. Whether importation of rice is banned or not.
All right, joining us now is an agro entrepreneur, also a very massive rice farmer, Onidari Angel Manuel. It's good to have you join us on TVC Breakfast.
Thanks for joining us.
And also from our Abuja studio, he's Deputy Director of Federal Capital Territory Agriculture Development Project, and also a rice farmer, Salami Abdullahi. Salami, it's good to have you on the TVC Breakfast.
Good morning.
Okay, let's start it this way, Onidari. When it comes to the issue of rice, Nigerians are known to produce rice in massive quantity and all of that. We still don't have enough. But is rice a crop or a commodity that Nigeria has a comparative advantage when it comes to comparison between this country and other countries?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, rice is the most important cereal crop after wheat. Over half of the world population, over 6 billion, half of them depend largely on rice. And amazingly, there is no variety of rice that cannot be grown in Nigeria. Rice indeed is indigenous to us. As far back as 1890, we've been having rice grown. Then the improved variety, that's the upland region, was introduced in 1930. As it is, let me remember vividly, the late MK Abiola did say, we don't have cause to import rice. As it is, we have the population in Nigeria we need about 5 million metric tons of rice. But almost half of this is still being imported. What are the reasons? When we do know we have the soil that can grow various the variety of all rice in the world. So what do we do? Just like people been saying, maybe we need to devolve power, devolution of power. Maybe.
Well, the president is asking for more powers in here from our last discussion anyway. That's just by the way.
All right, let's go to Abuja. Salami Abdullahi. Yes, well, the question is, Why are we still importing so much rice? Nigeria consumes about 5 million metric tons, according to our guest here, and we still have a deficit of about 2 million tons that we actually export. So much money is spent on rice every year. What is it that countries like Thailand, China, and the rest of them are doing right to have enough rice to consume locally and, of course, more than enough to export to countries like Nigeria? And how can we bring that to bear if we're to, be self-sufficient in rice in another 3 years?
Well, what has really happened is that agriculture in Nigeria has been long neglected. Because in the past, because of the oil boom, so many people left farming and went into urban looking for white-collar job. And so the structure for agricultural production has actually been disrupted. And so we have been a huge market for other people to actually come and sell their food products. I think with the new development where the federal government is getting to realize that we have the potential to produce more than enough rice, there's a new orientation. Like what the program the president launched, the Anchor program, on the 15th of November last year, where there is a well-structured value chain approach, where all the millers are now made to look backward, organize outgrowers for themselves, and so that the paddy production will be highly increased to feed the numerous mills that are emerging in Nigeria as we are talking today. Several of those importers of rice have actually begun to establish mills. You discover that the Stallion Group have about 4 mills already in Nigeria. The Wakot Group has a big rice mill in Benue State, and then several other rice mills have already been established back in Ogun and Lagos State. But the paddy is not enough. So there's a need to now encourage the rural farmers or the rice producers to actually produce to feed those mills so that we'll be able to meet the requirement of the country and even invariably export.
Okay,
I think,
now
that is a new approach, and I think it's going to work very effectively.
Okay, now, but if we look at how rice is being grown now, there's so much government involvement, government coming to do this and government coming to do that. But the point there is, we know how lucrative the business of rice may be. Why are private individuals or private companies not cashing into rice production?
You know, we have actually been very consistent with our policies. There be inconsistency because when, for instance, if you recall, we have actually made effort to ban the importation of rice to this country severally. But somewhere along the line, this ban is lifted, and then those who have been hanging on to import now flood Nigeria with imported rice. If we are a bit consistent, like now, we know that the price of rice has gone so high, and then there's the hue and cry that government should find a way of importing more of this food so that, the common man will get it cheaper. But if we can bear and allow the system to really organize itself, and then so that the farmers can key in appropriately, and then begin to improve the production methodologies and the technology well passed on to them, I'm sure we're able to feed the existing mills, and then we have enough enough rice produced locally to actually meet the demands of the Nigerian population. But policy somersaults. I wish this government will resist and not fall into the temptation of that of the fact that food items are becoming too expensive, and so there's need to lift the ban and allow foreign rice to come into this country. We have the capacity, as far as Nigeria is concerned, to produce rice, both in our plant farm and the lowland farm. The irrigated rice, sure we can produce rice all the year round, given that there is a well-structured value chain system. What we are seeing today is that the private sector or the millers are now coming to look for farmers that will go to feed their mills. If the policy is allowed to stay and this system is well rolled out, I'm sure it will be a seamless kind of rice production, and then the mills will have enough product to feed their mills, and of course the idea of importation will be reduced very soon.
Of course, rice is on the list of 41 items or so that government has put a ban on. I wonder what the status of that is right now. Has it been banned or not?
With recent developments, the Tinkan Island Command of the Nigeria Customs Service impounded 31 containers fully loaded with Thai parboiled rice imported from China and forcibly declared as yeast at the Tinkan Island Container Terminal in Lagos.
Each of the 31 impounded containers was carrying 14,000 bags of rice. The Customs Area Controller, Yusuf Bashir, disclosed that the actual duty for the 31 containers of rice is estimated to cost more than 70 million naira.
An importer by the name Destiny Limited brought in 31 containers and declared them to be yeast. And for those who have the knowledge of what we're talking about, yeast is supposed to be 5% rate of duty by the classification.
All right,
Wow.
well, you heard it there. More and more people undercutting government there. Okay, so Onidari Angel Manuel, you are a big-time rice farmer. How vital is irrigation to increased rice production? And how realistic is this goal of, self-sufficiency in rice by 2018, which, the Agric Minister talks about?
To be honest, irrigation will solve virtually all the problems we have in rice production. Because basically, we are so much dependent on rain-fed. And this has really brought, production very low. If you can remember vividly, last year we had the, no rain this, no rain that. And that actually affected major food production. That's why we are having the effect now. But we can just imagine if we have irrigations, you have farm settlements, basically all year round. Once you have irrigation, all year round, there will be production and the mills will be fed. And so the major challenges should be, how do we construct irrigation to majority of this farmland? We cannot continue to depend on rain-fed agricultural system. We need to do something. We need to take it to another step. And that is, when we take it to another step, everybody came, that is when we said we are developed. But as it is now, we're still struggling. And, initially I said maybe devolution. Maybe when we realize probably the local government can take care of that aspect of the agricultural aspect of it. Empower people. There are people, we do know most of the locals are farmers, not just, we can take them from subsistence to becoming a real farmer, a producer. Because like I said earlier on, we have the land, we have all this. Let me bring you in. Lagos State can be said to be an agricultural state. Yes, but to a lot of people say, Lagos, do they produce? What can you grow in Lagos? But we have assets. We have Ibejuleki there. We have the Ekpe side. We have the Korodu side. And just recently, let me bring
reserved for industries anyway.
Yeah, that's it, brother. Let me bring to your notice again. Just recently, some years back, down in Fashion Lyra, they acquired some hectares of land in the neighboring state, Ogun State. But what is being done to that land is there. It's being cleared, you understand? But all you do is policy, bring in people. Let them do what they're supposed to do.
All right. Now, we certainly see a collaboration between Lagos State and Kebbi State when it comes to rice production and all of that. But we'll get into that. I'm going to take them to my wall as usual.
Yes, indeed.
Now, rice is one of the most consumed food and food crop in Nigeria, and the country also ranks among the top 12 rice consuming countries in the world. Much of this consumption capacity is largely catered for through importation from other rice producing countries, hence making Nigeria one of the largest rice importers in the world. Now, Nigeria has the potential to be self-sufficient in rice production, both for local consumption and for export purposes. Now, let my producers give me this. All right, fine. Now, when we come to rice production in Nigeria, annual rice demand stands between 5 to 6.4 million tons, metric tons of rice. Now, our guest mentioned that earlier. Now, local production of rice stands about 3 million metric tons of rice. Now, if you do that mathematics, you see that certainly there's a huge deficit, and the cost of importing rice represents a significant amount of loss for the country. Let's move on to have a better understanding. Now, Nigeria is the world's #1 importer of rice with an annual average spending of about $2 billion. And Nigeria rice merchants imported 24 million metric tons of rice valued at 1.77 trillion from Thailand, Pakistan, India, United States, and Vietnam in the last 10 years. Initially, the bulk of Nigerian rice imports came from Thailand and India. But however, India's removal of an import ban on non-basmati rice has led to the country becoming Nigeria's leading supplier. Now let's go further. Now statistics reveal that, certainly if you look at this, now statistics reveal that in 2011, for instance, the country imported about 3.2 metric tons of rice. And if we move on to 2012, it was about 2.8 metric tons. And we have 2013 or 2.8 as well. It was static at that. And in 2014, it was 3.5. And in 2015, it was 2.5. If we move on, there are lots of implications of all of that on the production and rice production in the country. Nigeria is by far West Africa's largest rice producer. It is relatively easier to produce and grow rice for sale and for home consumption, certainly if you do the mathematics generally. Rice is grown in paddies or in upland fields, depending on the requirements of the particular variety you're talking about. Now, if you look at the spread in the country, you see certainly these are areas where rice production is very based on the species or the kind of variety of the kind of rice that various parts of the country that are good for the production. Generally, the middle belt is one area that if you see the green in here, you see that certainly the fertility of land that is most conducive, where the rainfall is very optimal. We have Borno State, Kebbi State, Kaduna State. We have Kano State, Niger State, Kebbi, Ogun, Edo. We have Benue State. We have Enugu State, Ebonyi, Cross River, and certainly parts of Tarabati. Now, some common local rice varieties in Nigeria are the Abakaliki rice, the Ekboma rice, and the very popular Ofada rice. I know Ngozi likes to eat Ofada rice.
Absolutely, and I was just going to ask, when was the last time you ate Ofada rice?
Well, Ofada rice is something, well, I've not had the time, I must confess, I've not had the time, but it's something I always long for sometime, certainly. Now, let me come to Salami in our Abuja studio before we go on. Let me ask you this. Now, when it comes to rice production, the federal government is coming up with policies. You talked about policies earlier on, but we have seen a collaboration between Lagos State and Kebbi State in the area of financing, in the area of working together to collaborate to produce rice. Do you think, in that light, the state governments actually have the greatest role to play in enhancing rice production in Nigeria?
Yeah, actually, you discover that what is happening between Lagos State and Kebbi State is there is a cool rice in Lagos. They have a very huge mill, and they require some paddy to feed the mill. And we have a large hectare of land in Kebbi State with a lot of farmers already mobilized to produce this rice. And like the new approach to government is that there must be a link between the producer and the mill. That is the production and the market. And the Lagos State has a market because the mill is there, and then the Kebbi State have the farmers, and they are producing a lot to be able to feed the mill. So it's easy to collaborate in that way. But this is what the States Council do. You explore the potentials in your various state, and then look for an anchor, which is the miller or the person to obtain the paddy, so that the farmers, as soon as they produce, they have a ready market, and that enhances the free flow of the production processes, and then the value chain will be well enhanced from the field to the mills and then to the table. Okay. There is most of the states have a lot of potentials for their farmers to produce rice, and they should be make extra effort to ensure that there is a mill ready to uptake those production, so that more farmers will actually be encouraged to go into the business of rice production, and then then we'll be able to move faster to meeting the demands, and then the demand base of the country.
All right. Before you go on, I'd like Onidari to come in here.
What I'm trying to say
just
is
hold
that,
on. Sorry. Let me bring in our other guest here in the studio. It's surprising to hear that Nigeria actually produces more rice than it imports. We consume 5 million every year, and we actually produce 3 million, as opposed to the 2 million that we import. But this 3 million tons of rice that we are set to produce in Nigeria, I'm just wondering, how many Nigerians actually do consume this 3 million that is produced?
That's it. It's, like I said, rice is the major, just after wheat, is the major, most important.
You know, I asked that question because what you see on everybody's table is a regular Thailand rice imported from China. Yeah. You hardly see your father rice. That's why I'm driving at.
They're not Nigerian like you that take your father or have the love for father rice. But let's move on now. A report by the Economic Research Service of the United States Department of Agriculture said that government policy of limiting rice importation has led to a drop in the importation of the commodity by as much as 300,000 metric tons in the first half of 2016. That's a report in there. Now, if we move on now, Nigeria plans to raise rice production to 300,000 metric tons a year. Now, this will reduce its imports by 15% and cut costs by $342 million a year. Estimates are that the demands in the country will be 35 million tons by 2050 and would export to other countries to compete with Thailand and India. The federal government has concluded plans to end the importation of rice from 2017. All right, now that's a policy. When it comes to the practical step-by-step that should be taken to achieve the lack of import or the ban or total stopping of importation of rice, what does it take to get there right now from where we are?
Planning and policy implementation. We do know we plan. But you know, once we deviate from paying lip service and then actually implement what we plan, we'll get there.
What is that plan precisely? If we have to itemize in practical terms, you are in the farm, for instance, you are just one person. It is possible, maybe apart from you, the government doesn't have the collection of who is this rice farmer, who are the rice farmers, who are the big-time rice farmers as a kid. We just have one here and there.
Now,
so what's the actual plan?
Now, as it is now, I do know the federal government through FADAMA, they're trying to bring in a lot of all these cereal farmer, rice specifically. So what we do is we have a cluster, just like Riley mentioned, the MOU signed between Kebbi and Lagos State is to feed the meal at Imota. The paddy needs to come in, but very close to Imota there. Ekpeazis, the Itokenasis, they have the Ogunshun and the Lagos State itself. They have lands there where they can produce land. But then, irrigation, which is very important. You need to settle in, apart from building all these farm settlement, bring in the facility needed for massive production within those catchment area. Just like I mentioned earlier on, close to Ogun State here, Lagos State has acquired over 200, almost 500 hectares.
Indeed. Okay, let's quickly bring in our Abuja guest before we wrap the show. How so quickly time has passed. Now, should there be some kind of legislation to actually ensure that Nigerians eat only rice produced in Nigeria? Will that be the way forward, according to RIFAN, that's the Association of Rice Farmers in Nigeria?
Salami, I don't actually think so, that there should be a legislature. Yeah. I said I don't actually think so that there should be a special legislature to make, to force Nigeria to eat only Nigerian rice. But rather, we should encourage the production system by, opening up the market, getting farmers fully organized so that they can access new technology, new financing. Because our financial system, that the commercial bank find it difficult to actually lend to farmers because they are afraid that the recovery is usually a very slow one and very expensive. But with the organized approach, where there is this linkage between the producer and the anchor, which is the mill, it is easy to tie whatever credit facility is going to be offered to the farmer to the market itself. And then the recovery will be faster, and there will be a faster turnover of credit to the farmers and to enable them to produce, because they need some of the basic problems of the farmers is actually inability to access credit at the right time to finance their production. And following the anchor principle, I don't know, most of us have not actually read that document.
Okay, Salami Abdullahi, sorry, this is where we have to end the discussion right now. We are against time. Thank you very much for coming. Salami Abdullahi, Deputy Director, Federal Capital Territory Agriculture Development Project. Thanks for coming. And we also thank you, Onidari,
Angel
Manuel. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, this is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program. Certainly, Ngozi has stimulated my likeness, my pause for ofada rice this morning by mentioning them.
Okay, so as soon as we leave here, you want to go for that ofada rice.
Tomorrow is going to be another time. I am Mike Okwoche.
And I am Ngozi Alebudu. Have yourselves a beautiful day. Bye now.